What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be doing the water beast again, but this time we're going to be featuring a new unit, and that is Wayne. Alright, so this is my Wayne stats, and the reason I built him was because he has a similar skill kit to Bernard in that they both have a attack bar buff that also increases attack speed. Alright, so this ability is like pretty much the same as Bernard's, right? And the main difference after that is he's got damage abilities on his first and second skill, right? So the first skill is like all the other bounty hunters, chance to ignore defense and attacks twice, right? So each attack has a chance to ignore defense. Now this is very important because ignore defense is quite nice on the non-groggy stage. So if you want your runs to be a bit quicker, right, in terms of like just run time, ignore defense is quite nice because it helps push the boss out of the non-groggy stage and into the groggy stage quicker, right? Because you're killing the boss quicker. Since you can't debuff defense break during that time, then ignore defense is quite nice for that. Now, secondly, he also has chain fire, similar to like things like Randy, right? So this one is a chance to attack again and consecutively, so you can see him sometimes just go berserk and fire multiple times, right? And this chance also increases when the HP is higher. So the boss is going to have quite a large chunk of HP, right? So when he's higher up, this has a chance to proc more. Okay, so his skill kit makes him basically allow him to do the same sort of role as Bernard, but also deal good damage, right, from his first and second skill. Whereas Bernard does pretty decent damage on first skill if you sort of rune him towards a more like crit rate sort of version, depending on what your best speed runes are. But the second skill, it does debuff, but it doesn't do much damage, right? The body slam. So that's why I chose to try out Wayne, and he seems to be working pretty well. Another thing too that makes him pretty decent is he also has an attack power lead for water units. So this is good if you're trying to stack up a lot of water units, and I'll show you a couple of teams actually that you can use with him, or that I use with him, that I've found success with. Alright, so this is my current team. So I'm stacking as much water DPS as I can. So I got Shaolin, right, the Kung Fu Girl, Stella, the Water Assassin, and Tak, Water Hellhound, right? And then I also have Ardella in here. And the reason I put Ardella in here is because the magic arrow, even though it doesn't specify exactly what it does, if you look up the description in Wikipedia, the Summoners War Wiki, you'll find that for Magic Arrow, it does different effects based on the elemental advantage or disadvantage. And because she's elemental advantageous against the water beast, she'll do defense break on the first skill, which is really nice, right? I believe it's a 2-turn defense break. Not that it matters, like, because for the groggy stage it's only one full turn. So even things like Shaolin's first skill will proc a defense break and will last for the whole groggy stage, right? But I wanted to bring as many defense breaks as I can just to make the run more consistent for damage, right? So that's why she's in there, even though she's not a water unit, doesn't really benefit from the leader skill, but that's okay. Having a mix of units is okay. Alright, so I'll show you the run. So this team is a pretty consistent double S. I'll also show you the stats of the rest of the monsters after I'm done with this, and I also have another team lineup very similar to this, which you can also use as well. Now for this team, one of the reasons I like it, and I think that it's good that I can recommend this to other people, is that there's no nat 5s in here, right? So the hardest things to come by are the Shaolin, Chasun, and the Stella. But there are other units that you can use instead to fulfill a similar role. I would say out of all of these, only Shaolin is like, ideally you would like to have her, because she just does so much burst damage and her whole kit is really nice for the boss, right? And she can tank frontline if you put Vampire on her. If you can't tank frontline with her, you can use Just you have to choose at least 2 units to put in the front line. So you have to rune them towards to being like semi-tanky. They don't need to be full tank, but what's most important is they need to be fast for water raid, because they need to shake off the chilling effect, right? And also they need to have like a decent amount of defense and HP to tank the hits. Now, so for this groggy stage, of course, you want to apply defense break as soon as possible. So having multiple units that can apply defense break is highly recommended, right? Then, if you can get at least one unit that has branding effect for the additional 25% damage, then that will make it. It will allow your whole team to do a lot more damage. If you can bring 2 units, even better, right? I'll show you an example of that very soon. Sometimes my Shaolin dies, even for like tanky stats, and it's mostly because she's not that fast. So if your units aren't fast enough, then alternatively you bring another attack bar booster, right? Now, if you want to bring another attack bar booster that does damage, I would recommend Purian. He's very squishy though, so you do need to give him some like decent HP. I don't have one that's runed for this right now, so I can't show you, but I can show you the unit in a second. Maybe I'll get back to that in a bit. Now, this team is a pretty consistent double S, but it does get triple S sometimes, and that's sort of where you want to be if you were trying to farm this for the runes, right? And the water ones lead to determination runes, which are, in my opinion, very important. I'll talk about those again as well in a second. So this is one variation of the team. Now, another variation that I've used to decent success is I run where is he? My bad, let me find him first. Okay, here we go. Sorry, my bad. Took me a little while to find him. Alright, I use this guy and also my Miyang. Alright, so now the reason I use the Barbarian King is he has branding on the second skill. Okay, so he's like another way of bringing branding. He also has pretty decent base stats. His base HP is like 10k. That's pretty decent. His base defense is not the worst. Alright, so as long as you can push it to about 1k defense, I think that's enough, as long as your unit is fairly fast. And this one is about 187. I think I would recommend 180 plus if you can. To put it into comparison, my Shaolin has only 152, and she was dying, even though she has much better defense and like decent HP. Okay, but she is on vamp, that sort of helps as well. But Barbarian King is okay for that. And now the other reason to use the Barbarian King is also the third skill, which is increased attack power and speed, right? And this also is a damaging ability, so he will attack the unit and then also buff at the same time. So I like it for that purpose. It's like it doesn't just waste a turn buffing only, it also does something while you buff. Now the reason I put Miyang in here instead of Chasun is because I've already got attack buff from the Barbarian King, and therefore I don't need Chasun, right? So therefore I bring Miyang to do extra damage, because Miyang is an attack scaling healer, right? And if you give her high attack for the healing power and then like a decent amount of crit rate, if you can get crit damage, then by all means, but not necessary. She's at least contributing like a semi decent amount of damage, as opposed to a Chasun who would basically add nothing, right? And the other reason that there's a bit of synergy going on as well is because of Dance of Mirage. So this is the heal, right? Which scales up attack, but the other thing that it does is extend beneficial effects. So that's really nice with the Barbarian King's attack buff, because he can't keep it up all on his own. It's a 3-turn cooldown and 2-turn duration. So having that extra buff extension helps keep it up a bit longer. Ideally, I would change him to Violent, just so that he can use his skills a bit more often and then therefore he can use the third skill more often and keep the attack buff on the team much more easily. So I'll show you a run with this. Now going back to why you want to farm water beast. So as I said, it feeds into determination runes and defense which is the defense aura rune. Okay, it's 7% defense for everyone on your team. Also important to note that even if that unit dies, the aura from the rune persists for the whole battle. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, the defense nukers are getting a lot more popular. They're quite strong as well, especially in Guild Wars offense, and it can vary from just like the easy to obtain ones like Copper and Bulldozer, and it varies up to like the harder to find Nat5s like Wind Panda, Velajul, Varad, those sort of units, right? So this is a decent mix of defense-based units that work pretty well in Guild Wars offense and even in Arena. And therefore I feel determination runes are worth building or like making if you can farm at least double S. Alright, now the reason I say double S is because the amount that drops from between S and double S is a pretty big difference, right? So from A plus to S, the amount of water crystals you get is not very different, right? It's about the same. The main difference between double A and S is getting the white colored crystals. I forgot the name. I think it's like high essence. Oh, sorry. Yeah, high magic crystals or something like that. So yeah, like in terms of crafting runes, going from like basically A plus and S is about the same. But if you can get up to double S, you'll get a lot more crystals. For double S, I believe you get around about 10 to 12 elemental crystals, right? For whatever raid base you're doing. And if you get S or A plus, I believe you get around about 7, or maybe I think on average you get about 8. Alright, so maybe between 7 to 9 or 7 to 8. Obviously, if you can do triple S, that's the most ideal because the range is 3 to 5. Oh, sorry, 13 to 15. My bad. Alright, so that's another version. The other version I have used as well is to use a more wind heavy based team. So I use. Sorry, I still use Miang to heal, but I put in Ardella and also the Wind Homunculus. Okay, so this Wind Homunculus, to show you, is built HP HP recovery on first skill. That's irrelevant for this, but this skill is a lot better for, or more useful for R5. Okay, so that's sort of why I actually changed my homunculus to a win one for now. Just for these stats, ignore it for in terms of R5. This one is still built to what I had for dragons, but the stats are fine for running in raid base. But in R5, I need to change the stats again. But anyway, the second skill is an attack speed slow and a branding effect. Now we don't know exactly what the effect or how much attack speed sort of affects the groggy stage. It's supposed to make it like it's supposed to make them have less turns, and therefore you should be able to have more turns on your either to hit the boss during the groggy stage. But as far as like how effective it is, I'm not sure. But obviously, if you can get slow on your team, then by all means, right? I wouldn't say it's 100% necessary. I wouldn't prioritize it. I will prioritize firstly defense break, secondarily branding, and then thirdly attack speed slow. Okay, but this ability applies both branding and attack speed slow, so that's pretty nice, right? It's really nice in terms of debuffing, and it does pretty decent damage. Like all the homunculus actually, because they're all attack types, they all do pretty good damage, right? If you build it towards the damage route. And the third ability is a defense break and branding, both of which I value very highly in raid base for consistent damage, of course. Unfortunately, it is on a cooldown and it's the third skill, so it's not that reliable, but having it there, in addition to having, say, Stella or Adela, Xiaolin, those sort of debuffers, it just helps. So in this team, I have two sources of branding from the Homunculus and also the Barbarian King, and I have three sources of defense break for the groggy stage from Xiaolin, the Adela, and also the Homunculus, right? And basically, there's still gonna be some RNG involved, right? You won't always get, you may not always get consistent double S every time. Maybe you have a bad string of luck and don't land your debuffs until like the end of the groggy stage. It happens, right? It can happen. If that happens, then maybe you'll get S, right, occasionally. But as long as most of the time you're getting double S or higher, that I feel that it makes it worth farming the raid for runes. If you're farming for Homunculus, then as long as you can get A+ or higher, then I think that's fine. I would recommend S at least, because you still need the magic essence crystals or whatever they're called. But yeah, as far as rune farm is concerned, I'd say double S at least. It's not easy to get, but at least the units, I mean, you can use these. There's nothing here that's particularly special, right? They're farmable, or they're like underused nat 4s that aren't very popular, that you might have lying around in storage, and if not, then they're not super hard to obtain, right? I mean, obviously some people even to this day have been playing like 2 years, still have no Xiaolin, or maybe they fed it a long time ago when she was bad, right? But because it's a nat 4, you have a reasonable chance to eventually get her. And there's summoning stone rotations as well. You just save up for those, and hopefully eventually you'll get it, right? Just I guess never give up on her, on hope for that. All right, so actually I made a mistake here. I forgot I'm still using the water bounty hunter leader. When I'm using the wind heavy team, I should have changed to a Adela lead, so I might have had a bit more damage here, but overall it's going to be roughly the same. I think this run's already on track to get triple S anyway, but I should have put the Adela lead. So that's the other good thing about having Adela. That way, if your team happens to be wind heavy, then you can switch her to her lead. Right, both of these are nat 3s, easy to obtain, and that way you can get a damage boost that way. The water units are a little bit harder to build because but if you want consistent damage, you need to make them 100% crit rate, whereas the wind ones are a bit easier to make because you only need 85 crit rate. And for things like Adela has a really low requirements because of her passive. She has this passive, an increased critical rate by 25%, so she's very easy to build, right? And I think probably the hardest unit to build here will be the Wayne. But if you can't build Wayne properly, then just use Bernard. But this is more to showcase a new unit that I had. And yeah, so I should show you the stats, right? So these are the stats of Wayne, and you saw it before, and also these are the runes. Now, there's no particular reason I have guard, except that it's the set that I had that I could give him to get him the stats that I needed him to be at. If you wanted to go for min-maxing, then I would say Swift Fight is the most ideal. But if you can't get fight runes, then you can just use blade runes to help him reach like a high crit rate. My one's not max crit rate yet. I'll be working on that later on. But what's more important is to get the speed up to scratch, right? I would say try to aim to get him to over 200 speed if possible. The more the better. Swift helps you a lot for that because his base speed is very high, and then add that to your speed slot too. You should be able to reach 200 speed without too much hassle, right? What will set different Waynes apart is how many damage substats you can afford to give him, right? Now you're probably going to keep in the back line as well. I considered maybe making him tanky to just throw in the front so that he can sort of fulfill multiple roles, and therefore I can make my armor damage dealers a bit more YOLO. But I find that very like rune intensive, so I just stuck him in the back line, give him some decent survivability still, and then as much damage as I could. I would try to, if you can't reach max crit rate, I would try to aim for about 85. I typically aim for 85 on most damage units as like a bare minimum. That way there's a bit of like a leeway in case you want to use like a crit rate lead, for example. So the other alternative, instead of using like an attack power lead, is to use a crit rate leader. That means it will mean that to get it to be like super efficient, you have to set everyone's crit rate to like sort of around that sort of level, and that might ruin your your consistency in other areas where you may not use the crit lead. But yeah, that's a couple of choices, and that's up to you. Now, a couple of other alternatives. Now, if you already have attack power buff, like sorted out, right? Let's say you're running the Wind Barbarian King, right? He's got attack power buff, but you don't have a Miang, right? Your Miang, either you need the skill ups for your Chasun, or maybe you just don't have enough Sky Dancers, don't have the runes maybe to make her work properly. Then don't worry, you can also use other units. So there's also the free-to-play unit, Bella, right? So 1 second. Now everyone should have a Bella, no excuse, right? When you start the game, it's like one of the first things you try to farm. Where's Bella? Ah, here. Alright, so the reason to use Bella, if you already have attack buff, is defense break skill 1. Right? Now Bella doesn't add any damage, but if you're more looking at trying to just get consistent survive and runs and survive, then Bella is a good healer. I mean, you need someone to heal you anyway, and Bella has a pretty strong heal for two reasons in Water Dungeon. So first off, obviously it's a heal, and secondly, it increases your attack bar. Now increasing attack bar helps you remove the chilling effect, and therefore it increases your effective life for when he attacks you next. Because if he attacks you and some of your health bar is frozen, he might one-shot you, like say when my Xiaolin dies. So this is also an alternative if you want to just go for some consistent runs. Yeah, you can definitely use Bella for that. And what else can you use? I mean, there's plenty of attack power buffers, like let's say Megan. Now Megan doesn't add any damage, right? But if you need attack buff and you don't have like a Wind Barbarian King or anything like that built, alright, so you can use Megan instead for the attack bar buff. She doesn't really add anything else from her other abilities, so she's mostly just there for that. She does do increased defense, which may help you survive occasionally. But yeah, that's another option. Of course, Galleon is another option too. Galleon doesn't add a lot of damage, but if you don't have enough defense break, he's another defense breaker, right? And he can be built fast as well. Like, I mean, most Galleons will be built fast, and he's got attack power buff, right? So that's an alternative to Barbarian King, just that he doesn't provide branding. So yeah, you can do that. Alright, so I think like, as far as like easy to obtain units or like Nat 4s, those are like the main ones. Now I recommend you to either focus on either a water team or wind team. I feel that the easiest to build. Obviously it's pretty hard to build a light or a dark team, right? So I would say Planet, you want single target damage, right? You also want attack bar boost, or speaking of attack bar boost, so Megan does that, right? So that's another way of helping you take off, like to get rid of the freezing effect. The other one I mentioned earlier in the video was Purian, right? I actually used to use Purian when I first started out because I had him pretty fast, and what's really strong about him is he boosts attack bar by 50%. That is huge, and he does increased critical rate. Now it's not going to be consistent because it's on a, I believe, a four turn cooldown when max skilled, so he won't be able to maintain it all the time. Um, Actually, I should double check. I have a Purian. Oh no, never mind. It is a free turn buff, so he can maintain it on his own, as long as the AI always uses this each time, right? As long as you can do that, you can potentially drop the crit rate on your units, or run like 70 to 80% crit rate on your water units, and just run Purian. He even has crit rate for water units. So if you absolutely can't get crit rate and just want to stack as much crit damage and attack as possible for your substats, then you can use Purian as your leader. You can even do that. He also does really good burst damage with Pierce, right? This does a lot of damage. If you used to watch my really old Guild Wars videos, I used to use him a fair bit in Guild Wars, and he could one-shot a lot of stuff. And it's the same in Ray Beast. He does do quite a good burst damage from that. First skill is also pretty strong as well. Obviously not as strong as the second skill, but he does reasonable damage. And he also has very low crit requirements because second skill gets 50% bonus crit rate already, and he's also a self-buffing crit rate, right? Now that means you only really need like 20% crit rate on him, purely based on like these two skills in terms of synergy, because crit rate buff gives you 30%, and you already start with 15% crit rate, right? So you only really need about 5% crit rate to make his second skill always crit. His first skill won't always crit, but I mean it's not that hard to make it always crit if you wanted to, because you've got the crit rate buff and also even the leader skill as an option. Also, the first skill, if he uses it, he'll increase attack buff for himself, which might be important for like if he happens to be under the freezing effect for some reason still, then you can also get him to shake it off himself, right? Keep him alive, because he's quite squishy. I mean, his base HP is not very high, base defense but the same as like a Barbarian King. But you probably need to give him like a bit of HP substats if you want to run him in the water beast, and just as much speed as possible, right? And then give him crit damage slot 4, and as much damage as you can. I recommend that as like an alternative if you don't have those units. So there's plenty of units that you can use for water beast, and a lot of them are easier to obtain. Like even Tark, very easy to obtain for a water team. And he's very powerful even in the wind team. So even if you're running a heavy wind team, you can even run Tark if you can spare the slot, mostly for group hunt, but all his abilities does pretty strong damage. Alright, that's it from me today. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll be doing like whenever I make a new unit for Ray Beast and it works out to be pretty good, I'll do a video just highlighting that unit and showing you how in action, and just explaining why I built it that way or whatever. Next up, I'll be doing a Lexi video. Even like someone asked me why Lexi. I'm interested to see why you use it in Wind Beast. I'll do that probably in a couple of days or so. So until then, I'll see you guys and have a good week. Laters. Bye bye.